Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. In previous episodes, we started migrating our library from Yarn to Mojmap and doing it manually because in the very first video, we had a very fat failure using the Loom tools. Now here's the thing, the libraries that we updated so far had very little to do with Minecraft. And even then, the manual process was time consuming and tiresome. In other words, one way or another, we need to use the Loom's new toolchain to translate our libraries. Now, if we take a look at the new entry inside Fabric MC's documentation for migrating mappings, you can sit back and read through that. They are talking about mappings and what are mappings. And here is the entry for 1.21.10. We already had seen this command. We will work with that. However, if we scroll down, we find these additional configurations and we see that it says Loom 1.13 adds two new more commands, one for migrating the client mapping and one for migrating class tweaker map. Now, this one is for the split sources on the client side, and this one is to translating access wideners. The bottom line is that we need Loom 1.13. Now, the easiest way of getting Loom 1.13 is to go into template mod generator, refresh the page today, go for 1.21.10, turn off Mojang mapping. If you have DataGen, turn on DataGen and the split sources and download a new template. And under Gradle.properties, you see that they are using Loom version 1.13. So you just extract this thing inside a new folder of itself, basically creating a new template mod. And that is exactly what I'm trying to do right now. However, as you see, I'm in the middle of downloading stuff. I did something extra, and under main and client, I started adding what I need to translate on base, because GBase is the next library in the line to be translated. It has access widener, as you see, for state manager. It has some classes under main. It has some classes under the client. Long story short, we need to sit back and wait for this project to sync and get ready to work. Right now, it's downloading assets. It shouldn't take that long now. And when it's finished, first things first, we will try to run those commands manually once and see the result. And then I will sit back and I will tweak the build.gradle again, because let's face it, I'm not gonna copy paste command after command for each one of my sub libraries. I prefer to have a task under Gradle window that would do that for me. Also, remember, right now, some of my classes have problems. For example, actually, most of them will have problems because these are depending on the shared library, and the shared library is not here, not even as dependency. So they will have errors. They will not build, they will not run, they will not do anything. The whole point is that I want the bare minimum here so that I can run my commands on their terminal. So I will run the terminal. I will make sure that I'm in the project, and I will run /gradlew migrate mappings -- mappings net Minecraft mappings : 1.21.10. Normally, this will take a minute or two because sometimes the Gradle daemon is not started, but right now, we were using Gradle daemon, so it's there. You see, under 4 seconds, we got this remapped source that contains everything under main. Okay, let's go for the next command, and that is /gradlew migrate client mappings. The mappings are the same. Let's run it. And again, under 4 seconds, we should see that we should have a remapped client SRC, and now it contains all the remapped client section. Finally, we need the translated access widener, so we run /gradlew migrate class tweaker mappings with the mappings and give it a few seconds. And again, under 12 seconds here, it's finished, and where is that new translated thing? Is here, right at the root of the project. Remapped access widener. Now, Is it the correct translation or not? I don't know. And here's the whole thing. Right now, Loom's tool tried to change and translate the code. It may be correct, it may not be correct. Because as we saw in the previous videos, we had these methods or even fields that are the same name, that both Yarn and Mojmap has the same naming for them, but they are two different objects inside classes or in the system. I'm not sure if Loom is now translating them correctly or not, but long story short, we can give it a try. So right now I will take this project to my second monitor and I will start working on my main project here. So I have an axis widener, and remember, this one is using Mojmap. And from the translated one, I will copy, paste, and for some reason, it's adding tabs, although it should be a single space. Don't ask me why it did that. I don't know. Maybe the Loom tool is doing something here. Let's resync our main project to have this axis widener, and I will come back and talk about something else. Normally, I won't do this. I will type things related to build.gradle, but this guy gave me a little bit of a headache, so I had to pause the video and write the whole thing. And now that I'm sure that it's working, I will talk about it. As you know, my library has more than few sub-projects. If I'm gonna translate each sub-project using this template, I don't want to memorize the commands, or I don't know, have a side note on a second monitor containing those commands so that I copy paste all the time. I prefer to have one task here that does everything for me. Also, this gives you the benefit that if you are using the template mod generator, you can just add this single task at the end of the build.gradle and it will work. Now we know that our project has a property called Minecraft underline version. So we define a mapping for net.minecraft colon mappings colon, and then we get that property. So we automatically update our build.gradle based on the version that we have under the gradle.properties. Then we want to set each one of the three tasks to use this mapping. So we say from the tasks, the one that is named migrate mappings, please configure it so that the mappings equals to the one that we defined. Same for migrate client mappings and migrate class tweaker mappings. Finally, we want to create a new task that we can execute and it will run each and every one of these three one after another. So we say for the tasks, register a new one called migrate all, and here's the description. For the grouping, we want a new grouping. Don't use the default ones. And this task depends on migrate mappings, migrate client mappings, and migrate class tweaker mappings. So when we run this task, it will first execute all three tasks and then continue if it has anything else to do. Well, obviously, it doesn't have anything else to do. Now, you need to sync the Gradle. I already done it. At the end, you just run the command. Or alternatively, if you had it before and pinned on top, come here and select it. And from now on, you just need to hit the play. So you see that it will run three different commands here. It's looking differently compared to when you were running it under terminal. Because as you see, it's running this task for tweakers, that's axis widener, then the client, then the mappings for the main, and finally all. And within 16 seconds, we got our translations for the axis widener, main, and client. Now that we are ready, from this remapped source, we will go select G block, copy it, come back here, paste. It should automatically change the packages, as you see, dev, Dementor, API base. Also, sometimes you may have an import that is wrong. All in all, compared to manually translate everything from scratch, you see that right now you have a faster way of doing things. Maybe we have some problems here because this guy says annotate method with get render shape as not null, but here we have a problem with the naming in block properties. Now, block properties is not related to Minecraft. This is mine. So I did change the name of get render type to something else. So for getters block, we changed the name to get render shape. So as you saw, this is not related to Minecraft, and this is get render shape as an override. So it's only annotating null. Then get shape is again annotating to not null. However, get shape factory create. Now this one is changed from state block view world, then something provided a block getter. So this one is block getter. Either I have a wrong parameter there. Let's take a look. Again, this is mine. So this one was translated to block view, but apparently it should be block getter. As you see, now it's called word. Let's call it, I don't know, block getter and refactor everywhere. So as you noticed, I already had a problem during my manual labor because, well, this get shape was translated from Loom. And here it says use block getter that is under level height accessor. But here I was using block view. As you see, it directed me toward a wrong thing that I had. And using the Loom's translation was the correct translation. So my manual labor may be wrong every now and then. Because of that, I may need to sit back and think about things. Also, if I was smart and if I looked at my imports, Java X, swing, text, HTML, block view, hell no, that's wrong. Maybe I will pass my originally manually translated libraries again through this process of using Fabric Loom's tool. However, let's just see what we have here. It says use the annotations. Again, use the annotation, and here annotate as not null. So that's it. What else do we have here? Rotate, annotate as not null, annotate this guy as not null, and that's it. So I don't have to go back and sit and find any one of these sections. Looks like it's okay. So let's go for the next class, and that is our gleaves block. Now this guy is interesting because it was one of the last things that I added, and if I had to go on and manually translate everything, chances are that I would screw things up. Now, the only thing that we have is that not null thing, and I'm really happy with that, and I will happily add not null annotation because let's face it, the fluid state or the shape or anything else shouldn't be null anyway. And as you see, everything is working. Imports, every class translation. So let's go with gwood other than this one because now I ticked block. Okay, I think it's just the place that is wrong, or is it mine? Actually, yeah, this is gonna be a problem. So let's see, where was that I tick to begin with? It was under base interfaces. Looks like I did forget to just copy this guy from here into the base, and I will actually add it to the base or the shared. Where do I want to put it? That's a big question. I will add it into the base here, interfaces. There we go. Hopefully we don't have any problems. Actually, we have tons of problems. By the way, normally 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. This is a good time to hit that subscribe button. So if I want to get rid of problems, I can just come back to this guy and from template mod, add the interfaces there, and guess what? Rerun the task. As simple as that. So here I will have an interface folder being generated in a few seconds. So this structure doesn't care if you have errors, if you have import errors, if you have missing parts. If we just add something there, it will work. So that's copy here. Let's delete this guy. I'm not going to handle manual things. Paste, and that is fixed, and everything is fixed. Okay. And our access widener looks like it's working. Anyway, we need to go into block entity folder, gblock entity, paste. Let's take a look. We just have one error here. Get word, get pause, get cached state. So these are the yarn mappings that didn't convert. So finally, some problem that is related to Loom's tool. It seems that it did fail to notice these as proper method calls to be converted. However, if you had to go and do this manually all the time, then this is a very small payoff that I happily pay. All in all, I need to run linky and just translate these three. So get world became get level, of course. Get pause became get block pause, and get cached state became get block state. Just three manual things, and the whole class is ready to roll. Let's go for the last class under this folder, GScreenBE. Now, here is the thing. This is a block entity that has a screen provider, and hopefully that will work. Let's go for the storage connector. That is the last class that sits under the root here. And again, no errors. So let's go for the client section. Oh, you know what I did? I derped and I moved the ticked block under the interfaces on the client side when I was copy pasting things. Oh well, that is fixed. So I have two interfaces here. Let's just drop both of them. Let's open one after another one. This is the renderer that renders tags, and the last pose. As you see, this is the text renderer. It renamed to font, so that's correct. That was the only thing that I could identify there. And this one should be okay. And as you see, it's just finding the correct name under the correct class to register the event. Then we have two more things, and that is for block entity renderer and render state. Let's add them. So hopefully this is still render state, so I can use the RS. And here, what do we have? We have lots of problems here now. Not lots of, three. Okay, let's see. It says that we don't have render because method render is never used, but then the override is something else, extract to new interface. So this guy is using that. However, update render state, I think these are some name changes that Loom did miss. I think it's extract render state now. Yes, and render. By the way, they are under some other classes like abstract both entity renderer.render. Now it's becoming submit. And as you see, the only reason that I believe it's correct is that it's accepting the same params and it's not yelling anyway. So suddenly the top section is working because we are now actually overriding the correct method names. If you didn't find these properly, the alternative way was to comment these and just implement the things and it would work. Anyway, that was a little hiccup there, but all in all, one library is done, and honestly, I had very little thing to do, and now we are sure that this thing is correct because on the G block on the constructor we are using it actually here, and you see that we don't have any problems there, and this thing is just this commented out thing, so that's the only warning there. Anyway, from this moment forward, I'm not gonna show it to you guys, but I have to sit back and add one more library at a time. For example, the GUI, resync my Gradle on this project, and on my temp project, I have to delete these folders, the access widener translation, and under main, I will delete everything that I have here. Under client, I will delete everything that I have under the template mod, and then I just open my Yarn version, copy the classes properly into the subfolders here, and then run the task again, import the classes again back here under the GUI this time, if the sync is done, and then test the proper namings. So I may even sit back and do that shared and register and reference and other libraries from top just to make sure that the translations were correct. However, the most important one is this guy, shared, because of the helper method. The tick logic register configuration, and these are self-explanatory. They should work. However, I will sit back and run the shared library once more on my new template for the Loom translation tool, and I will happily do that because it takes only 12 seconds. I couldn't resist. I had to show it to you guys. 23 seconds and my shared library being translated for the access widener, for the source on client and main. Now, here's one thing that I want to mention. There are two ways to go from here. If you didn't translate things before manually, well, just do what we were doing in this video, copy paste and get done with it. However, if you already had done some manual labor like what we had before, we can open our file, for example, here on components, and then open the alternative and start looking at the things side by side in two monitors. That's one way of doing it. However, there is something that you can use, although it's paid, and that is a software called Beyond Compare. And as you see, I was using it for some other tools before. Now, we can say that we want to do folder compare, folder merge, or anything else, or text merge, text compare. Let's go with this guy. So we have two things here. I will just copy the whole thing from the new translation, and I will copy the whole thing from this side and paste it here on the start. So as you see, this will go on and highlight the places that things have changed or deleted, and we can just move down and take note at any place that we are not consistent. For example, if we had any difference between the name changes of the Loom side, because this is the template mod, and my side. And as you see, the only difference that I found is the package names. So this shows that this file is completely translated correctly. So I don't have to do that again manually. You should be able to open things. So you see open, going into fabric projects. This one is the yarn translation, the underline inside remapped source. So we want to find the proper one, that is the fake player. So fake player, open. And no, we don't want to save anything. So here I want the corresponding one. Open. We go up, 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 inside mine, glibs, shared, source, main, Java, dev, Dementor, API, shared, utils, fake, player. Open. Now we see the proper differences. And as you see, the only difference is that I dropped the entity. I didn't need that. Then we have an empty line here that's ignorable. Here is the main thing. As you see, this is what I'm looking for. The other one on line 94 here says that attribute instance, actually it's line 95 here, attribute instance add or update transient modifier. The translation says add. It doesn't have or update. So that's one difference. And as you see, it immediately fixes itself when this one is saved. So comparing files instead of text give you the benefit of this part. Now here we have player set pause row instead of set pause. This is again another one of those differences. We have different number of things because line 69 is empty here. Let's remove that one, line 69, so that when I save this, when I come back, now I can compare the same line numbers. Okay, so this one is set pause row. Now here's a trick. I can select it. I can say, see what I did? I just moved my mouse on this yellow arrow and I click. It says copy section to the right because I know the only difference is that RAW keys words and it did copy it here. So I save this guy now. If I go back here, 142, I see that raw here and it looks like it's correct. So again, I scroll down. Again, we have 196. Go down. 196, where is that? Oh, I need to save. I go back, it's there. And then here's the thing. These I will ignore because when I was manually changing the files, I did rename the params to level. Looks like Loom's tool is ignoring the params, the local params. But this one is important. We say stop using item. It says release using item. That's the important one. 246 here. Okay, and of course below one here on 256 and 246. Okay, then other than the name changes here on level and world, we don't have any problems there. Again, On line 293, we have the same problem. So 293, and I assume that on line 303, it should be the problem. So that's the name change of the params. Okay, what is wrong here? Now, you see something like this every now and then. It says that there are differences here, but when you compare the text, it's the same thing. So what did change is maybe this guy is using tabs, we are using spaces, or the number of spaces are different. Ignore them. You want the lines that are highlighted with the red and they are not parameter names like this guy again. So 368, 378, 368 and 378 go back, they are fixed. This is the name of the param, this is the name of the param. Again, one line being selected with nothing as highlighted red. Name of the param, name of the param. It looks like other than few errors here and there, I actually done a decent job of doing manual changes. Okay, now here's the thing. It says remove if statement if to use equals null. Well, that's a warning that came up after changing to Mojmap, but maybe because right now the new version of Minecraft is changed and here and there some things cannot be null anymore. And because of that, it says that, hey, you know what? It can't be null. So it can't be null, then we don't need to handle the null situation. It's always false, means that it can't be null. So you need to sit back and read your own code now. So simplified to use that not equal null to true. So that one is always true. Remove that part. And finally it says it should be false. So we know that it's always equals to trace, and trace is always true. So it's not null all the time. And as you see, it's really simplified things. Part of it can be because we had annotated something as not null, I'm not sure, but because I didn't look into any one of these after manual translation, I'm not sure if that's the case or not. So if you don't have beyond compare, there are other ways. One of them is just sitting back and comparing them line by line manually, or just ignore all of these, drop all of these, and then put the other ones from the translated part into here if you want to. And it shouldn't be dangerous. I mean, I will do it right in front of the camera. So I will nuke everything, and from the translated part, I will copy and paste, and I immediately open that fake player part because I know that the only problem we had right now is that one import on top that is not being even used. So that's that. And now I can sit back and open file after file, let the analyzer work, and just take note at this warning, where is that, and things like that. You know, if I have any problems, if I have any errors, that needs my attention. And as you see, that Loom tool had done a decent thing. The only thing is that every now and then we have one import error. Again, I'm going to the end of the list here, XP helper, and that's it. So all of our utilities are actually being translated correctly. I know that some people really prefer to do manual things, and then if they are using this sort of second translation, they will prefer to use something like Beyond Compare, or I don't know, any other diff tool. There are free diff tools out there that you can use, and the process is the same. Open this file, open that file, and take note of the changes and look where the changes are. I really don't like the use of the word world here, and I really prefer to have it as label all over this file or any other place in the project. This is where manually changing things may would have been a better approach, but as I said, it's really time consuming. So maybe you want to sit back and read it and make sure that your whole library is now 100% working correctly. You don't need to do any other thing. You have the correct namings, you have the correct logic and everything else, so that when you go back and rerun the game, now you have a peaceful mind about the things that had happened inside your project. Personally, I'm one of those guys that are really OCD when it comes to these sort of things, the migrations, the name changes, everything like that. Even if I use the Loom tool, eventually I will sit back and take care of everything and make sure that, for example, the parameter names are correct and I don't need to change any param names, or maybe a method call here and there has a problem, or anything that really is playing mind games with my OCD, for example, maybe Java docs. So as you see, I have this word here. That's exactly one of the things that is playing on my brain. I prefer the word level here and here and here. So I will do a fast refactor here. And honestly, this is one of the things that I prefer if Loom had it inside of itself, and that is parameter name change. However, that's the place that it's lacking, although it's understandable because Loom shouldn't check what you name things personally, and parameter names is one of them. That's the only thing that I will do. Check the parameter names, check the errors, check the warnings, done with everything using Loom automatic tool from now on. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun, everyone. Bye.